many businesses across the board claim that they are trying to change the world for the better. So, how does Emergent fall into business structures the way we see it today?
The value that I'd want to apply this week would be agency. Are my actions in service of both myself and the whole?
Principles that underpin the value of inclusion, just like each and every one of us are changing and evolving and developing our mindsets.
How you can start to just in a relationship of two people, look for the solution that is bigger than both of what you are seeing at that time.
Looking at those areas from the perspective of, if this is not serving me, then it means it's not serving the whole.
That's the only metric of success, is I made everybody better.
Society, it's the planet, it's future generations that we can't see. It's everybody playing the game and everybody being able to win.
Cool, guys. So I feel like, we've touched on service, we've touched on social upliftment, adding value, having, wanting to marry our values with our work. We talked about, service for the highest good of all. And in light of these perspectives, I think many businesses across the board claim that they are trying to change the world for the better, and whether that's big corporates, financial enterprises, social entrepreneurs, you have nonprofit organizations, you've got NGOs. So how does Emergent fall into, business structures the way we see it today? Does EHC fall into these categories? And if not, what exactly is it? Priya, I think we could maybe start with you on this one.
Yeah, there's a reason why we didn't set this organization up as a nonprofit organization. And that's because just the depth of that principle is so important, because currently in our system, we have companies where profit is the key goal. And then there's this idea of social responsibility and community service and upliftment that is a part of the business ideals or goals, but it really is a separate piece. It's about doing good with some of that profit. And then on the other side of the scale, you've got non-profit organizations that say to do good, we actually need to deprioritize profit, because you're saying any of the earnings, the goal is not to make profit. And inherently through my journey, it's been, how do we actually create the type of organization where profit is integrated without any split from purpose? So through purpose, we achieve profit. And I think that was just such an important principle. Having said that, I do think that there are many organizations that are doing the best they can in the system that we know right now, both for-profit and non-profit organizations. So I think just within those organizations, there are ethos and there are people that are trying to achieve the best that we can. But there's certainly room for new ethos and new organizations and new concepts like the one we're bringing about. It's not, however, fully unique, because we can see that in the US, as an example, there are organizations that have started to be capitalist or profit-driven organizations, but they actually will only take on projects that are in line with their values or in line with social impact. So we're really excited that we can accelerate a movement like that through the model that we're building. But it is that inherent principle of bringing profit and purpose together.
Yeah, look, the way I see it is, with a lot of the organizations, they seem to direct or target towards one end of the spectrum or the other. So a lot of the organizations would be completely, like NPOs, for example, are completely socially driven. No interest in profit, just for social purpose. And I feel a lot of perhaps corporate businesses are geared completely, or their value system is completely towards generating profit. And I feel that us as people, we are never really one or the other with anything. With anything, I think it was once. I think Chris Rock once quipped in a comedy set that somebody asked him, "Are you a conservative or a liberal?" And he was like, "No, on some topics I'm conservative, and on some topics I'm liberal." So I think the takeaway for me of that was we are not. You don't have to be all about the social upliftment or all about prosperity and profit making. I believe that there is a balance between them, and trying to find that balance and sort of putting them both on an equal standing, on the same sort of pedestal. You start to combine. You start to find ways to integrate both those aspects into your structures, into your systems, into how your culture, your values, everything that you do considers profit, considers my social impact, considers society as a whole. So you can consider all of that while still looking to be successful and profitable. So for me, that's I don't believe that we have to be one dimensional. As Priya said, there are definitely models out there that are looking towards merging these. But I think for us, it's also about trying to find that balance, that putting them on the equal pedestal and ensuring that I know personally for me, for my own fulfillment, I need to have a level of success and financial prosperity, and I need to feel my social impact on the world at large. So I think, yeah, definitely. But like, if I consider most things, if I think of socioeconomic structures that exist in the past, there would be capitalism and communism, or capitalism and socialism. And I think that none of us, or the ideal situation, it's pretty universally known, is some blend of those ideologies, which is, I think that's ideally where we are, where we're trying to take care of all our desires and our needs as people, as citizens of the earth, and as individuals, as family members, all of those type of things. But I think also, like, of sort of examples, because it sounds very like abstract, or something that maybe people won't, or businesses, for example, won't go for. Like, you may think, which business would ever want to cut profit in favor of social impact? But then if I take the example of, let's say, your carbon footprint, I think back, I'm going to give away my age here. I think back to the 80s and 90s when I was growing up, that this idea was out there. These thoughts were out there, that our carbon footprint, our impact, but businesses weren't willing to buy in yet. They weren't willing to take a knock on their bottom line to have that social impact. If I think of modern times, I think everything's sort of moved towards understanding that our current profit making has to be in line with our conserving the future of our planet, our impact on each other, all of those type of things. So I think, yeah, definitely this movement and the organization that we're building is trying to merge and consider all of those thoughts, and then and build systems around that.
And if I can just add something quickly to that, because I think, Marlon, you might be a little more optimistic than I am on that point around businesses transforming in that direction. Because there's this quote I heard, which is quite a nice one, but also controversial. It says, if you want to create social impact, start up a nonprofit. If you want to create massive social impact, start up a business, right? And there's merit in that, because actually business and the drive for profit and the scale can do a lot of good. But I think sometimes good causes can get hijacked by good profit, so when the profit becomes very attractive, and we're all seduced by it. I mean, I've spent, and I still am spending a lot of my career in a very highly commercially driven environment, which is great. but it can become very seductive. And so even something like the carbon footprint might have been adopted because it's the right thing to do, but then it can be hijacked for, to sound good whilst also just not doing as much social good as it should be doing. So I agree with you that an idea can be adopted, but at the same time, I feel like it needs a lot of you need to actually have a very strong value system underpinning that, or else it can easily be the power and the profit can be seductive.
Yeah, so just to build on both your point and Marlon's point around profit and service, I think the major differentiator between us and existing businesses, because there are plenty of existing businesses that have profit and service at the center of what it does. So profit and giving back social responsibility, etc. But when we find that we marry profit in service, so the service itself allows us to become more profitable, then it means when I win in doing the service that I'm doing, we actually all exponentially win, which is a model that hasn't been adapted or adopted, at least in the current business environment, in a meaningful way. So I think that's what we're hoping to bring to this.
I think our current definition of profit, we see it as pure monetary value. And if you look at the essence of what profit is, it's net takeaway. So I think with Emergent, what we're looking to do is to see profit as money plus all the additional value that we've added within that, within providing the services, the products, all of that. And in essence, just redefining what profit actually is. So I think, we've gone through our journey. We know why we're here, how we got here, and also given a little bit of perspective on what Emergent is as a business, what it aims to do on a high level as a business. I think I'm curious from Mal and Marlon's perspective specifically. I think with Priya and I, it's quite evident, why we bought into it, how we came to, just immerse ourselves in this world. I think I'm curious from a outsider, so to speak, perspective. What made you buy into Emergent Humanity Code? Mal, maybe we can start with you here.
So yeah, as I said, Priya and I had many conversations prior to Emergent culminating to what it is today, and just walking through the journey of these questions. And if I'm honest, Marlon and I have also ended a lot of conversations with questions that we didn't fully answer, but knew we were looking to move in a better direction. So when Cal and Priya launched the site and began to start working on this movement and all of those things, I was definitely an early supporter. But my actual entry point started when I heard about the first business model, because my commercial side got excited. And the concept itself blew my mind. The fact that we could have, like I said earlier, profit in service versus profit and service existing separately. And just as a strong believer and an advocate in my own career and just driving what I call sustainable sales, which is building out sales functions that focus on more than just volumes and profit, but actually adding real value to all stakeholders to create exponential wins. When I looked at this model and I looked at the type of business and career that I was building around those things, there was a very clear alignment with both my personal and professional values. So if I look at that, and just based on the journey that I already shared with you guys, I was on considering building a movement, thinking about exponential wins in terms of business models, and you just add that with the culmination of a compelling concept, the alignment of my values and what I thought I could bring, what value I thought I could add. That was the point at which I said, hell yes, I'm in. So yeah, that's my journey.
Okay, I think for me, one of the things that really brought me on board or really got me to commit, I think, was that there's a question that always sort of ate away at me, is that how are we all, as a collective, really so content with spending the majority, so much of our life, being unhappy in our career, our jobs, or just within the systems that we are working with, in that they are not aligned with our values. Sometimes they even directly contradict our values, and we sort of compartmentalize ourselves to believing that, okay, I put on this mask or this persona when I go to work, but that's not really who I am. I'm doing that to earn money, and then when I get home, that's when I become who I really am. And to me, that made no sense, considering that the average person spend 30, 40 years in their career, 5 days a week. It seems such a massive portion of your lifetime to be, for lack of a better word, how I would say to myself, to be pretending. I felt I was pretending because the values didn't align. And so I felt that if I can get into a situation where I can satisfy my need for comfort, prosperity, financial gain, along with my need for as I said, I've always been about social equality and, merging those values. So let the values, as Mel said, through the service is part of the generating of the profit. So it's not a case of, I felt like in the past, I would go generate the profit and then look at how can I socially impact with this profit that I have in my hand. Whereas now a system got presented to me where it's simultaneous, where you're serving at all times and you're prosperous at all times. So it really fed into my core values as well, and I think there's various other values, I think, within the organization, things like inclusivity, lots of other components, the synergy, the community aspects, many other components of the business that really, it just all resonated with me. And I was like, this is where I need to be. This is where I belong. This is what I've wanted to do. I just didn't know it because it didn't exist yet. So yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, I think a common theme with each of us seems to be wanting to marry our values through, or thread our values rather, through every area of our life, not separate, our work selves and our personal selves. I heard someone once say that, we talk about work-life balance, but there's no such thing. We have a life, work is part of it, and you balance that life. And I think what we're trying to do here is say the same thing about values. Like, you can't have a work value and then a life value. You want to have a value system and everything feeding into that.
If I can add, in coming to co-founding this concept along with Cal, it took such a lot of tussle. It literally took around 18 months to 2 years of back and forth, mulling over how could I show up and create something that married the two. How could I be of service, but also create a viable business model? It took agonizing reflection and a number of ideas that just weren't hitting the mark. And finally, when it came together, and it came together as a culmination of the community and the movement and this idea of this collective knowledge and intelligence, as well as then looking at my experience in the financial industry, and I've started applying that in a fintech concept. When it actually started coming together, it felt so elegant that it almost felt obvious. Like, how did I not see this all along? And in the discussions between Cal and I, and us just going back and forth, what actually is the concept? How do we refine it? How does it show up practically in values? And then how does the business model and the concept get built out? It just felt like a natural thing that must be taken into the world, and irrespective of what it actually does, it felt like something that just needed to be shared with the world.
So I think today's question that I want to throw to you guys is, how will you apply one of these values into your life in the next week?
So I think for me, the value that I'd want to apply this week would be agency. I think we sometimes get so caught up in our own perspectives. I definitely get caught up in my own perspective. And it's easy to see things from the view of self. So, this person hurt my feelings, or I did that for that person, or I showed up in this way. So, I really just want to stop and ask myself more this week, are my actions in service of both myself and the whole? And just doing that consistently throughout the week. I also want to get really practical with it. So just reflecting at the end of every day, asking the same question, are my actions in service of myself and the whole? Catching thoughts in my mind before they turn into actions, because sometimes it can become a story of, I did so much, or this person did this, and treating myself as separate from other people. So just catching the thoughts before it turns into an action and doing something about it. And finally, I think I would be asking for feedback. So, from the team at work, from family, friends, anywhere I spend my time, just getting feedback on how I'm showing up and if I am actually showing up in the service of the whole, because we don't always see ourselves with a true lens, and just using those things to apply agency in my life this week.
I think for me, the value that I want to make a concerted effort to practice more is that of inclusion. Really, the principles that underpin the value of inclusion are those that I want to try to implement a little bit more in my life. I think I'm guilty of, like most people, uh, placing judgment on people, maybe based on past actions or something they've said or done or something in the past. And I think once they hold that space in my mind, I'm always painting them with that brush. So I think I also have to realize, just like each and every one of us are changing and evolving and developing our mindsets, and I need to be more open-minded in my personal life of when I meet people. I'm fortunate enough to meet a lot of people, both people I've met before and new acquaintances. So I think it's about not having those preconceived notions, or not placing so much reliance on them that I have already formulated or judged an opinion of this person and decided that no, this person is not somebody I want to integrate with or be involved with on these spheres of my life. So for me, it will be really about communicating more with people. It's about chatting, have a conversation, get an understanding of where they are. Do we have shared values in terms of our futures, our aspirations similar? If so, is it possible? Can we collaborate? Can we work together? Can we figure out uh, how we want to go about improving ourselves, improving the society? So really wanna try to implement that, where I don't box people in my mind. I want to be more open to, as I said, to the principles of inclusion, where I really engage with people and really try to establish their intention, my intention, and if there's a space for that collaboration, absolutely be open fully to it. I think the us within our movement and the creating of the community has really opened my eyes to this concept of inclusion and sort of holding our judgment a little bit, trying to understand where a person is in the continuum. It may be where you were last week or a few weeks ago. It may be where you want to be one day. So I think those conversations, as long as the values are aligned, then I think the conversations that you'll have would be amazing. So I just want to be more receptive to people within the value system of inclusion.
Yeah, those are such good ones. I think for me personally, what really resonated for me, and that I want to take into my week is parallel practice. As we were speaking about it as well, I thought, in my personal capacity, it can be so easy for us to just fall into certain routines and practices and habits. And even, for example, in our work lives, most of us go into an organization or a business or a team where there are already practices implemented, there's already systems in place, and we kind of just fall into those practices or systems. And then what ends up happening is that we start, it's easy for us to complain and say like, oh, these things are not working, this team just doesn't know what they're doing, this is how it's impacting me. So I think for myself, what I want to do is go, where are the areas where, things aren't really serving me at the moment? And looking at it from this approach of, how can I think about this in a way that's gonna serve the collective? So if this thing is not working for me now, it means it's not working for the collective, it's not working for the team as a whole. So how can I apply parallel practice and this way of thinking that's going to say, how can I change this in a way that's going to serve our collective um, for the greater good, for the benefit of all, not just to make my life easier, not just to make my systems more efficient, but how will it serve the team? And, taking that into other, personal areas as well in our daily lives, where you might have tried something, or, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not getting the results that you want. And looking at those areas from the perspective of, if this is not serving me, then it means it's not serving the whole, the collective. So how can I approach this in a way that's going to think about the highest good of all?
Yeah, as I'm reflecting on the conversation we're having now, I'm thinking there's the quote that comes to mind, which says, "You teach what you need to learn." And so these values, and especially the way we've been talking about it today, it can sound very big and very idealistic or lofty. So it's certainly inspirational or aspirational, for all of us. It's the things we aspire to learn and grow every day to become, not the things that we already are. So for me, it's also going to be inclusion. And the thing I've been thinking as I'm hearing you guys speak is, it can be so easy to gravitate towards people whose life view and worldview aligns to ours. And that's how you create these in groups and out groups. And especially when we're in larger organizations or, bigger groups of people, it can be so easy to then form an in group with the people that you align with, or that you really enjoy the way they operate and the way you operate. And what I'm going to do is be a little bit more deliberate about observing who I place in my in group or out group, and then being more welcoming, more open to diverse perspectives, and actually seeking out diverse perspectives and seeking to increase or expand my circle and show up with genuine kindness and warmth to people that I don't always agree with, or whose style of working and being doesn't always gel with mine, but just being intentional about being warm and open to it.
Sure. I think that's a perfect note for us to end this topic on. And just to recap for everyone that was listening, those were our 5 values, which is abundance through proliferation, parallel practice, inclusion, agency, and humanity.
So, Priya, I'm going to start with you. Being the primary founder of Emergent and the person really that has uncovered and coined this term, win to the power of win, can you tell us, what is it?
Yes, I stumbled upon this concept of a zero-sum game a few years ago. And it's basically the idea that there's a winner and a loser. So if you think about a winner having +1 and then the loser having -1, and they level out at 0. And I thought it was so fascinating because we took that idea and we used it beyond just games and sport and normal organized competition. We actually took this idea of win-loss and a zero-sum game into so many things in our lives. So if you think about just the idea of competing for scarce resources, whether it's many people competing for the same job or promotion, or in a relationship, a couple competing to be right or to have their preference over the other person's preference. So just this idea of win-lose dynamics and zero-sum game has been pervasive. And then we can see the emergence of the compromise concept, because, of course, when you have a winner and a loser, someone's always unhappy. And so compromise then is the concept of everybody trades off a little bit. So you keep a little bit and you lose a little bit, and you end up somewhere in the middle with some mishmash of what you wanted, and the other person or people have a little bit of what they wanted, but they lose some as well. And it's obvious that that doesn't really leave anyone feeling very happy. The idea of compromise just always has this feeling of I'm losing something. And then we can see that that evolved to this idea of win-win dynamics. So in a lot of business concepts, business teams, just different areas of our lives, we're used to this idea of a win-win. And win-win is basically saying then, okay, moving from win-loss to compromise to now saying, how do we try and make sure that if one person or party in a transaction or a particular objective is winning, the other person is also winning, so that everybody leaves feeling like they've gained and they haven't traded off. And that's a really nice evolution. Where it falls short, though, is it only takes the immediate people or the immediate stakeholders in a particular transaction or objective into account. And so as I was mulling all of this over many months and maybe even years, I started having conversations with Cal, and we started just thinking about this compromise, win-win. And then we actually came up with this concept of win to the power of win. And basically what that is saying is it's a next natural evolution, because we're used to thinking about in business this idea of exponential wins and exponential gains, and in personal development as well, the idea of exponentiality is prevalent. So win to the power of win becomes like a really natural next step in evolution, but it also actually feels like a very easy to latch onto heuristic to say, how do we actually look to win by creating wins for every other person or stakeholder in that particular transaction or objective, but also look even wider than just the people that seem to be directly or immediately impacted. So those could be the other people around those immediate stakeholders, but it could also even extend to the planet. It could extend to future generations. We really start to take a macro view. And with exponential thinking, we can take a macro view. So that's win to the power of win.
Yeah, I really love that. I also think it touches on, the concept of game theory, which is where the idea of the zero-sum game originates. And in game theory, what you're essentially trying to do is maximize your worst case scenario payoff in any game. So you're considering what is your opponent's best move, and then what's the best move that I can make to reduce or mitigate my risks and negative results from there. So it's the best possible outcome for myself in the worst case scenario. But I think as we discussed, like in episode 1, where we said, if we are going to redefine profit, for example, then win to the power of win is like the principle that's underpinning that. So if we're saying the way we do business, profit has to include the benefits to all the stakeholders involved, to all the parties directly and indirectly impacted by, say, a transaction. Then in essence, we're saying that is a win to the power of win. It's not merely the customer wins because they've got a product, the business wins because they've made money. It's looking at, okay, what are the environmental wins from this transaction? What are the unforeseen third-party wins? For example, how are our future generations and children going to be impacted by this transaction? What are the societal wins from this transaction? And I do believe that this is the future of the economic and social landscape that we are trying to attain.
It's interesting because personally, I would say this concept of win to the power of win really sort of raises new questions in my mind, because I've always been a very sort of competitive person. But then I realized that the key to developing so many new systems or methods of doing things that sort of benefits everybody, all stakeholders and all everybody that's impacted by decisions or choices that we make, is really collaboration rather than competition. I think collaboration is really the key here. It's about understanding that my true success in anything is really rooted or integrated in the success of others along with it. That's where I really gain true success. It's not success for myself in isolation, or more importantly at the expense of someone else. So I think it's about mutual gratification and benefit. And to attain that mutual gratification and benefit, I don't mean mutually necessarily just with two parties or three parties that are maybe decision makers or choice makers within a particular process, but it's understanding that every impactee, every person, every component, every aspect of the planet that is impacted by the choices and the decisions that we make, it's that success, that true success is understanding that all of those components, which is why I think we say for the highest good of all, in as almost as a mantra in everything that we do. So for me, the collaboration is the critical component here.
And I think in the context of work, in the corporate space, this concept of win-win is a term or a concept that's widely used and sometimes even overused to convey the importance of just rejecting the premise that for me to win, someone else needs to lose or others need to lose. The reason I say overused is because it's also sometimes been hijacked in some ways to create this landscape of repackaging losses for others as wins, or creating wins for some people, so shareholders and customers as an example, that result in wins for them, but a net loss for the whole. So, I think, Cal, you touched on it earlier, the example of creating wins across the board. If you look at an example of, let's say, an oil company that creates new technology that intuits its customers' needs and reduces fueling costs and creates these wins across the board for both themselves and their customers. But then they go spill thousands of gallons of oil into the ocean every year. It's actually a win for the company and a win for the customer, but it's an overall net loss for the entire planet over time. So I think win to the power of win is really the next evolution in creating exponential wins, creating sustainable wins. It's just understanding that everybody's playing the game. It's not just businesses and customers. It's not just Man United players on the field and Liverpool players on the field. It's the fans, it's the audience, it's the commentators. So for us in society, it's society, it's the planet, it's future generations that we can't see. It's everybody playing the game and everybody being able to win. If I look at Emergent, the life areas that we discuss, we look at all areas from mindset and finance to health and parenting. Priya, which area would you say, or areas would you say, win to the power of win has the most impact? And how would you say those areas impact us the most?
Yeah, so I think the concept win to the power of win lends itself to every area of our lives. And it's such an aspirational concept that it would mean, we'd have to really reflect and continually try to be better and better at it and live up to it. So difficult for me to choose maybe a favorite area, but there is an example that comes to mind, and it's very practical. It's relationships, and it's how we can apply it or start to apply it, at least in the relationship dynamic. And actually, it's an example that a few years ago, I was sharing this concept of win to the power of win with some colleagues. We were actually traveling for work, traveling separately. We happened to meet up, coincidentally, we happened to meet up at the airport in Dubai, and it was a 1 a.m. conversation that morning. And somehow we landed on the idea that neither of us thought compromise was a workable solution in most things. You know, everybody feels like they're leaving having lost something. And then I shared this concept of win to the power of win. And Masala, who is one of the colleagues with me, he listened to it and he was like, wow, I absolutely love that. And I was drawing the concept in the book. And he said, I absolutely love that, because the example then he proceeded to give was, he said, it's like if I wanted a red feature wall painted in my house and my wife wanted a green feature wall. Compromise would say you either did a brown wall, which is just a combination of the two colors, or you did half a green wall and half a red wall, where this idea of win to the power of win might be, let's look for a solution that actually is bigger and better than both of our ideas and we both win. And the outcome might be that we don't have a feature wall at all. We knock down the wall and we have a floor to ceiling glass wall that is stunning and allows you to enjoy the view. And then I loved that example as well. I thought it was so practical around how you can start to, just in a relationship of two people, look for the solution that is bigger than both of what you're seeing at that time. And if you start to extend that to beyond just the two people, you know, to others who might be impacted by it, the children in that case, or people who visit the home, or and so on and so forth, you know, there are many ways to look at it and look at how it can be beneficial for many more people. So I absolutely loved that example. And I think we can start to apply ourselves very practically in all areas and look for the solution that we're not seeing, that is bigger and greater than what we're putting on the table at the moment. So yeah, shout out to Masala for that example.
Everything of our society is created on a competitive basis. It's created all our measurements, all our metrics of success and achievement. If we look at anything, if we look at business, if we look at organizations that we talk about in industry, we say this is a Fortune 500 company. Why do we say that? Oh, we say that because that's our measurement of their success. That's their measurement of their growth, because they've made X amount of money, or they've have a certain shareholder price, etc., etc. That's what we measure as success. But really, if we change our mentality and we change our mindset, then there's no reason why, just like we say we measure success there in that scenario by profit, there's no reason why we cannot have several other drivers that holistically give us a measure of success or achievement in all our lives. So I think that's the big thing. It's changing our mentality, because everything is created like that. Everything of our society is underpinned by those principles. So it's very hard for us to go item by item or area by area and say, don't make this the metric of success, make that. But rather than that, when we change our mindset to understand that you're not just successful if you've only succeeded, but you failed in these other components, but we've just ignored it. We haven't counted that. We've only put this one item as a metric for success and you've hit it and that's it. Rather, if we create different inputs to how we value success, in fact, even perhaps a different definition even of success, then once we redefine success to incorporate all of these aspects of, as we said, your impact, everything that you as an individual, as a business, as just as a citizen of the planet, everything that you impact should be left better, or you should at least aspire to leave it better, or make it better with your presence and your actions and your decisions. So for me, I think it all starts with, and the biggest challenge will be to change this mindset that we've had for centuries and create this new way of thinking that we will only succeed when we all succeed. That's the only metric of success, is
I made everybody better.
Thank you to every single one of you that takes the time to be here with us to unpack these big concepts.
If you want to reach out and connect, please do. Our comment section's open, our messages are open across social platforms as well.
So thank you again, team, and thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.